Hello, and welcome to Explorations in Economic History and Thoughts. And today we are going to talk about the new economic policy and the end of war communism and how the new economic policy was a retreat to markets. We spoke in the last video about the failure of war communism. However, it's important to ask how the leaders knew that it was the policies of war communism that were the problem, and that the so-called retreat to markets would succeed and would lead to an improved economy. Some people say about the war communism period that the major problem was that they were trying to fight a war. They had just fought World War I, and the economy was already in shambles, and then they had to fight the Civil War. However, the Civil War ended before the end of war communism. For a while, the leadership continued to nationalize factories and to essentially to continue on the road to building communism. But then at some point, Lenin decided not to continue and decided to do this so-called retreat back to markets. So why did Lenin do this? What made him so sure that this would work? And of course it did work. There's a book called Trotskyism, Counter-Revolution in Disguise. It's written by a Marxist and a pro-Soviet writer. He writes that war communism, which had prevailed from 1918, was a means to fight the Civil War and repel intervention. According to this idea, war communism was necessary in order to fight the Civil War, so you'd think that it was successful, that it was a powerful tool. However, he goes on, the government laid its hands on everything produced in the country and distributed everything according to a plan in order to be able to withstand the attack of the class enemy forces. It sounds as if they were expecting it to work. He continues, during those years, production did not increase, it decreased. Transportation was not improved, it deteriorated. The major portion of what was produced in the factories and plants went for the front. Of course, the Civil War ended, like I said, before the end of war communism. The government collected foodstuffs and raw materials from the peasants and was supposed to give in return manufactured goods. These, however, were not forthcoming due to the collapse of the industrial system and the necessity to supply the front. But again, there was no necessity to supply the front by the end of the war communism period, but still Lenin decided it was necessary to, quote-unquote, retreat back to a market system.